Hey guys, this is Sepra. So after I posted my first little roaming video, some people had questions about the build and my playstyle and all that kind of stuff. So I figured that today we'd kind of go through and I'd just show you a little bit about the build. It's not an original build at all. It's kind of a stolen build that a lot of people run. It's a standard, 30, 10, 0, 0, 30 build. But I thought I'd go through just the traits that I'm running within that build and what kind of utilities I've been using and stuff like that. I could be doing it wrong. There could be a better way to play it, but it's what I've been used to playing in World vs. World, and I've enjoyed it. So, if anybody's interested in it, that's what we're going to go through. All right, so let's start off, and we'll take a look at the hero panel there. So basically, like I said before, this build is a 30, 10, 0, 0, 30 build. It's a Berserker build, and the whole point is to try to kill your target as quickly as humanly possible. What I've found is with power necros, and again, I'm not the most experienced person, but the longer the fight goes on, the more likely I am to die no matter what kind of build I play. So even if I put in, swap out some of my Berserker stuff with soldiers or with knights or with cavalier, it's just too hard, right? I end up dying or nothing. So basically with this build, the whole point is kill the target as quickly as possible before they can kill you, because I know ANET wants the Necromancer to be an attrition class, but as far as power builds right now, they're very, very much not an attrition class. So let me go through. So we took 30 in spite, right? So it's going to be power and condition duration. The individual traits that I'm taking in power, spiteful talisman, right? So it reduces the recharge on focus skills and increases their range. I find this to be extremely, extremely helpful because, as we'll go into later, I'm running axe focus. And so I usually tend to initiate fights by using spinal shivers just to try to make sure that my target can't get away. And usually it gets off recharge, so I'm able to cast it again sometime during the fight if they pop some boons. But I find it really, really helpful to have that 1200 range spinal shivers rather than the 900 range spinal shivers. And also having the reduced cooldowns is great, especially for these. Next thing I take is Chill of Death. So some people have had some questions about Chill of Death versus was it Axe Mastery, Axe Trading, right? So axe trading is a really good trait too, right? Increases damage when you're wielding an axe by 10%, right? That's a straight up damage increase, which is amazing. It also applies to Death Shroud, and it reduces the recharge, so you're able to cast Ghastly Claws and Unholy Feast more often. I was running that for a little while, and I think it's good. The reason why I'm taking Chill of Death is that I found that it might just be a psychological thing on my part. I really need that extra spinal shivers hitting them when they're close to dying. Now, I don't know what this is going to be like when it's when the health threshold is 50%, which is supposed to happen in a couple days with the patch. But what I find is that when I get somebody down near the end there and that spinal shivers hits, it just crushes them. All right. So again, I might end up doing overall more damage if I were to take axe trading, but I love Chill of Death. I've been using it for a while now. I've played around with both of them, and really that's the one I picked. All right. So as far as the Grandmaster is close to death, right? So when an enemy's below 50% health, you deal 20% more damage. It's pretty crucial for a power build. All right, so next with curses, we go into here because it gets us a little bit of precision. The condition damage doesn't really matter that much. The trait that I take here is Weakening Shroud, and so I'm actually kind of scared about the nerf to Weakening Shroud in the patch coming up in a couple days. The reason being that this is really what keeps me alive in a lot of fights, right? There's very little sustainability or survivability when you're running this type of a build. And the problem is, even though we have Death Shroud to soak up a little bit of damage, A, there's not a lot of toughness, so that's going to get drained really quickly, and B, if you use all your Death Shroud or your Life Force to soak up damage, then you're not able to use Life Blast, which is the hardest hitting thing in this build. So, Weakening Shroud, basically, whenever there's a thief, it's what keeps me alive, or else they'd just be able to destroy me. So, mainly using it for the bleeding doesn't matter, it's mainly for the weakness. Alright, then Soul Reaping, so we're going to have critical damage again. Berserker build, critical damage is always a good thing. And then increase the life force pool again. Kind of a little bit of survivability, but more so you can get some more life blasts off. Alright, so what am I taking in Soul Reaping? The first is the trait that Life Blast pierces and causes vulnerability. I've actually gone back and forth between taking that and taking Vital Persistence. The only reason why I started to take it was that I knew it was going to be buffed to 50% and thought that might be interesting. But I've just found it's not really making a difference at all. So it really, having the Life Blast pierce and cause vulnerability has been more helpful. The main thing that I've found it to be helpful for recently, to be honest, in World vs. World roaming is coming up against those, the Mesmers who have, for some unknown reason, no internal cooldown on the dodge roll clones. So they'll dodge roll and they'll just keep putting out clones and putting out clones and putting out clones. The problem is, when you're trying to life blast them and they dodge roll and put out a clone, it'll hit their clone and not hit them, right? So they're basically just soaking up and blocking that damage. So taking this trait, with that particular build sometimes helps me to just have it go through the clone and actually hit the Mesmer who I'm targeting. Spectral Mastery. I use this because I really, really love Spectral Walk, and I have a decent amount of swiftness uptime on this build. I don't know exactly what it is, but using Warhorn and using Spectral Walk with the Spectral Mastery's made a huge difference, and I'll talk about why I run Spectral Walk. It's actually one of my favorite utility skills. And then finally, Deathly Perception. Critical chance increased by 50% while you're in Death Shroud. And again, that's pretty critical for what this build does. Alright, so let's go over and we'll talk a little bit about the armor that I'm running, the runes, the weapons, the sigils, all that kind of stuff. Alright, so basically I'm running full Berserker, right? Power, precision, critical damage all the way down, right? Power, precision, critical damage weapons, power, precision, critical damage, trinkets. The one thing that I'm not running that's Berserker stat is a Cavalier back piece, and really the only reason for that is the fact that that's the back piece that for some reason I took at the beginning and I just haven't made a new one yet and don't want to pay for a Berserker one, right? So as far as runes are concerned, I'm running 6 superior runes of the Scholar, which do 10% more damage when health is above 90%, alright? So it's a somewhat risky rune set, and I know a lot of people have talked about, using Ruby Orbs versus using superior runes of the Scholar versus using, some other runes. I know it's risky. I like being able to deal that extra damage, and it's a pretty powerful rune set if you keep your health up. All right. So as far as weapons and sigils, right? So on the axe, I'm running Superior Sigil of Force just to do some more damage. I mean, a 5% straight damage increase is always great. And then Superior Sigil of Accuracy. The main reason being I want to get my precision when I'm not in Death Shroud as close to 50% as possible, so I'll have a 100% crit chance while I'm in Death Shroud. Right now, I guess my server has one of those dumb Bloodlust buffs. So normally my crit chance runs about like 42%. So it's not... So all these stats are buffed up a little bit. I wish we didn't have that stupid buff right now so I could show you what the stats actually look like. But Superior Sigil of Accuracy puts me at around 42% or so. So that's 92% in Death Shroud. It's not ideal, but if I actually ran food or oil at times, I'd be able to get up there. All right. So Offhand Dagger, and I'm running again Superior Sigil of Accuracy, or Main Hand Dagger on the secondary weapon set. And then offhand, I'm running Berserker's Warhorn. Okay, so the sigil that I'm running on that Superior Sigil of Doom, and for a while I was running Superior Sigil of Force or Bloodlust. I decided I didn't want to run Bloodlust anymore because I think all of those kinds of buffs in World vs. World are just stupid and they shouldn't exist. Not criticizing anybody who uses them, I just, it's already so unbalanced. Why not try to make things somewhat balanced by not adding all these additional buffs and stuff like that? Just as a side note, I think that with Bloodlust, especially in World vs. World, you should only get credit for when you kill an actual player rather than running around farming deer, but that's another point. So, regardless, I'm running Superior Sigil of Doom on my Warhorn. And the reason for that is I was just running into so many of those healing signet warriors, and so having access to poison really helped me handle them. So that's why I'm running that. As far as underwater stuff, not that it really matters. I got one of these because it was the best one I could, but with Superior Root of the Scholar again. And then power, precision, critical damage, you know, on the spare, and then precision, toughness, condition damage on the trident. I'm usually not using the trident for damage, so it really doesn't matter that much what I'm running on that. All right, so let's take a look at the weapons that I'm using and the utility skills that I'm using. So the main set that I'm roaming with when I'm running, so basically when I'm running around world versus world, I have my dagger, my warhorn, all right? And I'll kind of talk to you guys as I run around, right? So what I generally do is pop Spectral Walk, pop Warhorn 5, and that gives me a decent amount of swiftness. It's not 100% uptime. If you played the build a little bit differently and did 30, 25, 0, 0, 15, you could have, you know, more than 100% swiftness uptime when you're roaming, which is kind of nice, but I like this build a little bit better. So usually when I'm roaming around, I have my dagger and my warhorn out, but as soon as I see an enemy, I switch over to axe focus. And the main reason is, you know, I kind of engage them, like I said before, using spinal shivers, try to get a Reaper's Touch off, and then Ghastly Claws them. Usually, so if I hit the Ghastly Claws, it actually does a really, really decent amount of damage. If I don't hit the Ghastly Claws, because they dodged or evaded, they usually used up a dodge or evade, so I'm able to use a Life Blast. So that's why I usually open with that. All right. Now, depending on what kind of an enemy you're fighting, right? You have axe. It's kind of nice to be able to kite them while you're using axe. I will sometimes switch over and use my dagger, and basically for two reasons, right? So the first main thing is Dark Pact, which immobilizes the foe, so that can be really, really helpful and really, really useful. I used that a little bit more when I was running different utility slot skills. We kind of kept them in my damage dealing wells, which was really nice. But I'll still use it to kind of keep an enemy, you know, somewhat in range. And then the auto attack on the dagger hits like crazy. It's amazing. So you know, if I'm in a position where I'm fighting a ranged character, or I'm fighting a character where I know they're not just going to destroy me being in melee range, or just kind of chain CC me in melee range, right? So like warrior or something like that. I'll switch over to dagger and just try to auto attack them down because it does hit so hard, right? So as far as the utilities that I'm using, so Consume Conditions is a heal. It's the best heal that we have right now. You know, I'm not going to go into detail about why that is, but if you played Necro, you know that right now that's our best heal. Right? So Well of Darkness I'm running. It's basically to make sure that I can get stomps off on people. You know, I wasn't running it before, and whenever I'd go to stomp someone, they'd always be able to use some kind of CC on me. So I said, you know, fuck it, I'm just going to start running Well of Darkness at this point. So that's not an issue. All right. Signet of Spite, I've been running that a little bit more recently. Sometimes I'll swap that out for one of the wells, like Well of Corruption or Well of Suffering. I've kept it on recently, because you get a little bit more power, which is nice. On the passive, let me help this guy out. So I'll show you an example of kind of how I did that, right? So he evaded that, that's fine. Get him with Spinal Shivers. Alright, drop the Well of Darkness so he's not going to be able to CC me, and stomp him. Alright. So I mean that's a basic kind of rotation that I'll use when I'm fighting somebody, and I know that was kind of corny and kind of cheesy because he was fighting that other guy, but I just wanted to show you what kind of rotation I generally use. All right, so Signet of Spite, again, it increases, you know, passive increases power, which is always helpful for a primarily, you know, power-based build. But also, you know, being able to use its active and throw all those conditions on an opponent is extremely useful in some cases, right? So I talked about running Superior Sigil of Doom on my Warhorn to try to deal with regen warriors with a healing signet. And so Signet of Spite has very, very decent poison, right? And so if you find that, let's say, I was up against a healing signet warrior, I used Dagger, I got a stack of poison on him, but then they used, Cleansing Eye or whatever that thing is that cleanses a condition. I can pop Signet of Spite, and again, decrease the efficacy of their healing signet and hopefully burst them down, right? So the last utility that I'm running is Spectral Walk, alright? Spectral Walk I found to be absolutely indispensable in World vs. World. So I was running Signet of, I'm forgetting the name, Signet of the Locust for a while, because of that 25% kind of, permanent uptime speed buff, because I never really use the active. Once I started to run Spectral Walk, I like being able to run a little bit faster. I know it's not 100% uptime on this build, but having that 33% speed increase is great. The other main thing is using it, it's kind of a Swiss Army knife with the Necro, right? So you can use it, and I'll make a video about this at some point, to jump off things that you shouldn't be able to jump off of and survive, right? You can use it as a gap creator when you're fighting people in World vs. World, right? And it doesn't work near as well as some other classes' gap creators, but it does work pretty well, right? You can also use it strategically, not so much as an escape gap creator, but more so as a kind of planned out gap creator. So for instance, sometimes I'll be fighting a warrior, right? And I'll need to create a little bit of distance between me and them to be able to, maybe use Spinal Shivers and have the time to use Spinal Shivers, or maybe, use a Ghastly Claws on them and try to get them down. So I'll pop Spectral Walk, right? I'll run, they'll usually chase me, and as it's about to run out, I'll pop Spectral Recall, cast my Spinal Shivers, cast that, alright, and then do the combo. So there's many, many more uses of it. That's what I find myself using it for the most, but it's such a good skill, and I think a lot of times we underestimate just how powerful it can be and just how many uses it can have. Alright, so as far as the elite, I'm running Lich. It's something that, it's a pretty good elite. I like it. It's extremely, extremely powerful in some cases. You can burst things down really, really, really quickly. I find myself using it most when I'm coming up against, say, like a Bunker Guard, or, again, a Healing Signet Warrior. It was more so before I was using Poison on a more regular basis, but something that I just need to be able to burst through their healing. You just auto attack, and it can usually get most things down. The thing you have to watch out for with it is that it really puts a huge target on you. So if you're in any kind of a group setting, as soon as you pop Lich, everybody's going to focus fire you, even more so than they normally do with you as a Necro. So you got to be careful about that. But I found it to be the best of the options that we have. Now, I fooled around a little bit with Flesh Golem, and it's okay. It does a little bit more DPS than it would if you weren't running something and you have the knockdown on it. But I just find it, I don't know, I don't like it. I don't like really running minions, so I've been avoiding using that. And Lich, in those circumstances where you have something that's going to be really, really hard to burst down, it does help you burst through all their healing, which is really nice. So I hope that helps to some degree. I hope I didn't miss anything major going through that. At some point I'll go through it, and again, like I said a couple times, I do want to make a video talking about Spectral Walk and different uses of Spectral Walk, because I found it to be extremely, extremely important and extremely, extremely useful. I hope everything's going well with everybody, and if you guys have any questions about this video, just let me know, and hopefully I can get a little bit more footage so we can put up another gameplay video at some point. Alright, thanks. See you soon.